Do you ever feel, like myself and so many others, that you want to drop out of the current societal construction and go and live far from civilization? As far as possible, preferably from people en masse, ugly concrete architecture, littering, vandalism, noise, traffic congestion, antisocial behaviour, neighbourly disputes, parking disputes, road rage, roadworks, the sound of the road, the sound of sirens, the feeling of being hemmed in amongst it all with no room to breathe clean air, enjoy a moment of peace, or be witness to nothing but the sound of your own pulse of life and the gentle wind in the trees. This feeling that stirs within so many of us so strongly, this call of the wild, feels like a longing for home, a longing to exist within our natural habitat. It's a feeling I get when I walk in the woods and hear nothing but bird song and the crackle of twigs underfoot instead of "this vehicle is reversing for the 100th time that day." Do you feel it too? Like we're all contained within this zoo-like fabrication, homesick for a life we've never truly experienced but yearn for all the same? What is this wildness that lives within us still? Us 21st century Homo sapiens with our home comforts, technologies and conveniences. Is wild a place we want to return to? Is it enough to travel there occasionally on vacation? Can wild exist within us as a trait? If so, how do we express it? And if our circumstances inhibit our connection to wild places, how do we nurture that relationship all the same? It is the end of summer 2025, and I realise that through my own personal circumstances, that the sunny season of long days so full of life's potential have passed me by somewhat. Boring health struggles, personal losses, and very little energy have stopped me from the adventures I usually tick off on my bucket list for this season annually. Swimming in the fresh English sea, visiting ancient ruins, walking high on cliff tops afar, full moon walks on dark warm nights, solstice light festivities, exploring new corners of the English countryside, sun-scorched and simmering with wildlife. And so drowsy with fatigue, I write this essay, hoping to spend the final weeks of August into September exploring the meaning of connecting to our wild selves, no matter the circumstances. Taking a look at my bookshelf, I note I've clearly enjoyed losing myself in the subject matter through other stories. Robert Macfarlane writes of the few wild places left in Britain and travels to them to explore the literal wilds of vast swathes of land uninhabited and uncultivated. Another favourite of mine is Go Wild by John J. Ratey and Richard Manning, which is a fascinating account of our prehistoric selves and how we might implement wild living into our modern lives for better health. Wild by Cheryl Strayed is a life changer for me. Before I read it in my late 30s, I was wasting my time. I was waiting for a companion to join me on a country ramble. Cheryl Strayed empowered me to go alone, and now it's my happiest place, wandering solo, just me immersed in nature. At home today, I dream of a life lived amongst trees, perhaps a cabin or tiny house in the woods, veg patch abundant and animal friends running freely around my homestead, far from anyone. The nearest patch of wild I'm able to access, though, is my garden. And I'm so happy that the much needed trend of wildlife gardening is thriving, as this certainly works well for my energy levels, while serving birds, butterflies and other insects. Patches are left to grow freely, not always to our neighbours' pleasing, including hedgerow species such as elderberry, rich with purple berries, some for us to decoct in the winter months to ward off viruses, some for the birds to enjoy now, some spattered like purple graffiti on the patio. Brambles are growing up through the elder so avidly that when I was harvesting the elderberries up a ladder last week, I could pick blackberries at the top as well, their dark, juicy sweetness fueling my morning's gathering. Aside the elder, Budley has sprung up 5 times the size of when it was planted last year, which was expected and encouraged, as the butterfly bush is a welcome pit stop to our travelling winged friends as they make their way across gardens in the middle of a highly urban area. Long grasses nearby accompany this as breeding habitats, plus a few stray nettles left unplucked amongst the salvia. And then there's the mighty centrepiece to our garden, a randomly sprouted sweet chestnut, usually a woodland tree, now majestic in its year-on-year exponential growth. Home to all manner of wildlife, shade for us on the hottest of days, and fruiting its spiky green treats for later in the autumn. We don't know how huge this tree may grow, but we intend to be custodians of it and pass this house on to someone who will also take this responsibility seriously. In this time of mass deforestation, any care you can give to such a beautiful tree friend is important. I'm really enjoying this book by Poppy Okocha at the moment. I'm consuming it in audio form in my garden, of course, and she is one of many well-known UK gardeners who are now championing partly rewilding our backyards for nature's sake. Isabella Tree, who wrote Rewilding about the incredible transformation of Knepp Farm in Sussex to a landscape of thriving habitat and revived wildlife, says that in taking back the power to encourage biodiversity from careless governments, we've got to start in our own gardens due to the vast landmass that they make up. Power to the people and the butterflies. Moving beyond the fences of my somewhat uncultivated garden, I seek to get out into nature as often as possible. Dependent on good days and bad days, this can sometimes not be as often as I'd like. I know I'm not alone in needing time away from fellow humans and their noises, needs and complexities. For those of us who love the natural world, the wildest of places offer beauty unspoilt by man's invention, fly tipping or general littering. Without these heartbreaking distractions and reminders of our complicity in planetary struggles, we can commune in purity with other life forms and natural elements that make our time on Earth such a miraculous experience. But not forgetting that nature and wild places are also defined as inhospitable, I wonder if our romanticised notions of wild living would play out as a reality check to our domesticated and evolved selves. How much nature is enough nature to truly feel its benefits? I dream of living in a cottage in the woods, but as I actually live in a 1960s semi on an often noisy urban street, today I'm off to the nearest nature reserve I can access, gratefully less than 20 minutes away from home. I'm out in my local wilds, which actually is about, well, it's actually only about 5 to 10 minutes outside of a major urban area to drive to. Where I've walked to is a good half hour, 40 minutes walk deep into the woods. I was just thinking to myself, I feel like I found a spot where you can hear more of the wind and the trees creaking. That's such a nice sound. Then you can the local A roads. But just as I'm saying that, there's a plane going over. So it's so hard, isn't it, to get to where there's no sign of man within my sight, even though I'm deep in a wood now and I've come to a place where I don't often see other walkers, hardly at all. Maybe never. That's why I ventured to this part of the woods. But I can see in my line of sight one of those kind of tin foil balloons that get set off. You see that so often. So that's come down in the woods, or you see them stuck up in the trees. So I'll take that home with me and discard of it properly. I know people have to celebrate. I don't want to poo-poo people's fun times, but at some point we've got to start thinking about the planet that we're trying to sustain so that it sustains us. Ooh, listen to the wind. That's the wind agreeing with what I'm saying. We have to snatch these moments where we can get them. I would love to live somewhere remote and wild and somewhere where I never had to see signs of people's litter. And I've been to those places. They're either so wild that idiots don't want to venture there, or people who do live there are the people who do venture there are the kind of people who would take their rubbish home, you know. How can people in a situation similar to myself connect to our homeland? Because this is coming home, you know, connecting to something that's so important to us, to our soul, to our health, literally to our health, because this tree right now is kicking out its fighting sides, and that's good for me as well as the tree. Thank you, tree. And yes, I am an unashamed tree hugger. I like to come alone so I can just listen, touch, really see, breathe it all in, and not miss a thing. It's beautiful to share it with people. I love coming with family and friends, but you miss things. And nature is a family, and these are my family and friends. I wanted to use this project to almost force my tired ass out of the house to explore a bit further, go a bit further, be a bit more adventurous, push myself a little more to explore new places, because that's like one of my favourite things, to discover new places. I think that really speaks to the nomad ancient self, you know, because we were nomadic and we moved on to find new resources or places of shelter. So I love discovering new places, and it's again something I haven't done this summer. But really what this project is making me do is really hone in on this idea of us all having this wild side that we need to connect to nurture, to express, to connect with, to enjoy, to set free. And I love it that as I speak this, like, it feels like the woods are agreeing. They're cheering me on. They're like, yeah, listen. A few more book recommendations for you. I was reading Awe by Daka Keltner yesterday. And of course, nature. Of course, nature is one of the biggest features in all the things that are good for us. But this book is particularly about putting yourself in a place where you are surrounded by things bigger than you. That could be looking at a sunset, looking at a night sky, just looking at these old trees that make me feel... I'll tell you how trees make me feel. They feel parental. They feel wise and parental, and when I walk beneath them I feel cared for and watched over, and like they are the elders, like they are the ancestors. And I feel their hand, their leafy hand upon my head. So yeah, that's Awe by Daka Keltner. Just had a moment of awe myself. That's a beautiful book. Sharon Blackie, the work of Sharon Blackie, particularly If Women Rose Rooted and Haggitude. This is for the women. And she writes a lot about folklore and mythology, particularly of the Celtic nations, and how that marries up to how women should be uprising and moving in the world in modern times, kind of in the feminist movement. But she speaks so much of land and landscape and the goddesses in the landscape. There's a lot of wild in those books, and I think really what she's encouraging us to do is to connect to that ancient wild self. And then there's another beautiful book called Hermit, and as I speak I can't remember the name of the writer, but I will put it here. I'll put it somewhere here. I actually read that during a period of time where I was really stuck at home and really isolated, and even though I was in an urban environment, I was really alone. And that book is all about her being in a similar situation, but she was in really remote places, a lot in kind of the West Country, and I think Lundy, the Isle of Lundy, which is off Cornwall. I'm going to Cornwall in a few weeks. This book is about her being in these remote places and alone,
by circumstance to start off with, but then by choice. Like, she really chooses to seek those remote, isolated experiences out. And that is such a beautiful book as well. So do we need to be in the depths of the Scottish mountains or wherever? It doesn't need to be the UK. I don't know if I think some people are watching from around the world. So if we can't go to these wild places, maybe our domesticated selves couldn't handle it as much as we romanticize that we could. But right now here, am I in my natural habitat, amongst the trees, listening to the wind, hearing the birds? Do I feel wild right now? Enough for it to count, enough for me to go home feeling renewed, joyful, energized, thankful, and just like I visited home. That's how I feel. It's like I've visited home, ancestors, friends.
Even the words rough and stormy, especially when related to the sea, do stir up an excited feeling within, don't they? Perhaps not if you're heading out to sea, but the thrill of watching huge waves crash against rocks from a safe distance makes one feel alive. Then there's the feeling of coziness as you're tucked up in bed at night, hearing the wind whip around the house. There's something about being cocooned in your safe space whilst the elements ferociously dance about it that lulls you to sleep, and that feeling's incomparable. And we all love a good storm, don't we? Especially the summer storms that come in with a distant rumble when the air is thick and heavy with heat. Outside we run in our summer attire, enjoying the downpour, cooling our bodies and charging ourselves with negative ions, soaking up the sky's electricity. At the end of a dry spell that's lasted since late winter and a summer unusually full of scorching sun, these last few days of the season have brought welcome downpours. Walking in rain under a woodland canopy is another wild thrill of mine.
The weather's probably not wild enough today to feel connected to the wild, but I do feel more connected to the elements, because as I was walking up to this part of the woods, it made me realise how much the rain sort of accentuates everything. There's the petrichor, the smell of the rain, and now we're heading into the season I think that has the best smell, which is autumn, especially in the woods. The earthy, rich, mushroomy smells of autumn. And then there's the colour, that it just makes everything deeper green at this time of year. Quite a lot of the leaves are actually getting a bit of a yellow tint now as well. There's the sound. I mean, as I stand here I'm completely dry. And yet you can really hear the rain is coming down now, actually. It just really accentuates all of the senses. And so often we would look out the window on a rainy day and go, not going out there, let's get cozy. And I was so excited getting in the car to come here, because I know how beautiful a woodland walk is in the rain. But it's not often that we would purposefully seek that out, and we should. It's so gorgeous. Especially this time of year, like, it's not cold, it's just so beautiful and meditative and enveloping. So yeah, check your weather report. And if your trees are in leaf, head to the woods on the next rainy day. It's really coming down now, yes! 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 This is what I was hoping for, a little bit more. Now it's gotten in my eye. That's proper rain. Now I feel it. More connection to the elements.
After searching for the wild outdoors in nature, places and climate, it's time to look inward. Remember, we were once wild ourselves, nomadic animals living in greater symbiosis with our environments. To some degree, that animalistic self lives on inside all of us, like the howl from a domesticated dog or the hunting instincts of a pet cat. For me, I feel my own howl emerge when I'm singing and making music. Allowing my voice to stretch out untamed in full dynamic expression is a primal feeling like no other, and the music I make is fully inspired by the elements and our magical connection to them. I was so intrigued by how others might allow their wild side out. I asked friends and associates on social media to tell me their stories of free expression.
I have really loved doing this Project Wild for the last few weeks, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I set out to explore the theme so that I could immerse myself more practically in nature and through books and music and people's stories. Thank you to everyone who shared their stories. If you want to share your wild side story and how you connect to it, whether it be literally out in nature or through art, music, dance, song, foraging, making clay pottery, whatever it is, and ways that I haven't listed, I'd be so fascinated to know. It's just, I found it a really wholesome and heartwarming project to do. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, share. Get wild, people. Bye bye.